Hi everybody, this is Diane. I was asked in a comment yesterday on one of my videos if I had a video on what kinds of book covers I use. So this video is going to be all about the book covers that I use. So it's not going to be about books that I purchase that I want for the pages. And it's not going to be about other types of covers like fabrics and folders and envelopes and things like that. It's just book covers, actual books that I buy for the covers. So I have quite a variety. I started gathering covers around for this video, and I've got a lot of different types, and I got out some of my journals that I had created to show you as examples of some of these covers. Before I get into the covers that are already decorated with pretty pictures and things, I just want to talk about plain covers because maybe you don't have access to some of the pretty covers. So I go to my library, and they had been having book sale for $1 a bag, and I would just look for covers that I like the size of, and then look at the under the book jacket to see if it was a color that I might want. So I do have a variety of sizes here, but they're pretty much within the parameters of a book that I might want to make. I don't really have a specific size that I work with because I just go with what covers I like. But if I'm going to be using a digital kit, I kind of want the book to match the size of the digital kit as much as possible. Do I have a measuring tape? I do. This is pretty much a size I might use for a digital, and it's 5 1/4 by 8 1/4. So if you look for a 5 by 8 size book, that's pretty standard. And I decorate the covers. I even have a smaller one. Some of the journal kits are smaller, and sometimes I just want for a theme. I might not have a book cover to go with the theme, so I will decorate the book to go with the theme. So let me show you some of the ways I decorate plain book covers like these. I have some here. Okay, this one is a pretty old one. It's one of my early books. And I just Mod Podged some images on here and added some embellishments. And I even did the back. So this was just a plain blue book cover. I also Mod Podged on this one. I just did took a whole piece of cardstock, pattern cardstock, and I did the front and the back, and then added a couple embellishments. This one I did a collage. It was a little collage book, so I did a collage on the front also and on the back. I don't decorate the backs too much anymore. And this one, I glued a piece of boho fabric, sari fabric on it, and just left the pretty deep pink cover, let that show a little bit. This one had leather spine and leather cover corners, so I wanted those to show, and I wanted the green fabric to show also. So I wouldn't call this a plain book because it did have these leather accents on it. And I had another one of these covers, and I used it for a Christmas journal, and I put a Woodlands deer on there with a Christmassy scene. But this one, it's a vintage journal. All the elements in there are vintage, so I just used some vintage elements on the front. So those are some ways that I decorate plain book covers. Also, I've had some marbled book covers, which I would treat this the same way as I did that one with the leather corners. I would embellish it just a little bit because I would want that marbling to show. Reader's Digest, you can do a lot of the same with. They have pretty patterns. You can get a lot of the newer ones just have plain solid covers, but I like the printed ones, and I just did one for the Woodlands, and I would show it to you, but it's all wrapped up and ready to go. But I will decorate the fronts to go with whatever theme I'm doing. So the pattern is just a pattern. So I would treat it like a solid book cover, but I wouldn't cover the whole pattern. And also with Reader's Digest books, some of the spines look like they're in good condition, but I have found that too many of them crack, and so I don't trust them. So I always take the spine off and put a new one on. You can reinforce the spine, but then this part still might crack. It's just something about the material they use for the Reader's Digest books that I just feel better if I take the spine right off. So I have an assortment of Reader's Digest book covers ready to go. Let's talk about kids' books, because that's pretty popular. Most of the journals that I make are made with book covers. I have made them with fabric and miscellaneous items, like even a feed sack or a sugar sack and a bank bag that was for coins. I've had all kinds of fun making journal covers with unusual materials, or a file folder or an envelope, but most of my books are made with book covers. A lot of people, like Nick the Booksmith, makes hers with chipboard. She makes hers from scratch, and they're beautiful. I love the vintage books. So, and children's books are a favorite of mine. So I do use the little ones, not that often, but I do use the little ones. Sometimes I use the Bind It All to make the wire binding on them, and sometimes I make a spine like I do with my other books. So the little vintage books are fun, and I love these three very old children's books. And I will keep these covers, the illustrations, right on these covers. This one I found, and I thought it would be really fun to play with the hole in the center, and even the pages have holes. So I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but I want to have fun with that one. I love the old school books, the primary books, because I love the covers and I can use the pages too. I get these at flea markets. These are the kinds of things you're not normally going to find at a thrift store. You might find something like this, but usually they're newer books at a thrift store. I do find some of the Reader's Digest at my thrift store, but these kinds I get at flea markets. You can get them in antique stores, but they're usually pretty expensive. When I find them at a flea market, they're a reasonable price, and I love these. And of course the golden books, the little golden books. I do use them, and I have some examples of children's books to show you. I haven't kept a golden book for myself, except this one, which isn't done yet. It's not done yet because I lost it. It got stuck in with some stuff and put away. But I've got to start on this one, and this is what I'm going to keep, because it was my favorite book when I was a kid. But this is what a golden book of mine might look like, and I'll probably embellish the front. I like to add fun embellishments to the fronts of them. Another children's book that I kept for myself was this one. So it was a vintage Raggedy Ann book, and I embellished it up with vintage patchwork and vintage lace, put some buttons on it. Sometimes the old books have marks or stains, which is fine to leave, but if I don't like the mark, I will cover them. So that might have been what was happening here. And an older children's book that I used was this one, On Cherry Street. This is an old school book. And this one had a mark on the back. I remember I covered it. This is when I used to put a paper on the spine, but I use fabric now. And there was probably something on the bottom here that I was covering, maybe. Oh, this front page is stuck. Okay. So, another children's book that I used and kept. These are more children's books, a little bit different as far as shape and stuff. So I had got a whole bunch of these from the library. My library used to have $1 a book, like all the hardcovers were $1, and then they started doing the $1 a bag. And the last time I went, they were actually having a book sale where they moved. That was in the lobby before. They moved everything downstairs, and it was $1/4 a book. So I don't know if that's the way they're going to do it or what. But I know I got these when they were $1 a book. So I paid $1 for each of these, and I've used a few of them, and I cover them completely. I don't leave it with this picture, but you could. Depends on the style of book you want to make. But I like that it is a tall, skinny book, but it's a hardcover. So it kind of reminds me of TN, but it's taller, and it's a hardcover instead of a soft cover. And I made a book that I absolutely loved, a journal with this shape of book, and I sold it, and I wish I still had it. So I'm looking forward to making more of those. I'm looking forward to using all of these covers. When you see what I'm showing you here, you will understand why I feel so overwhelmed with projects. This is a recent acquisition, and it's an old book, The New Fun with Dick and Jane. So it's torn, it's not pristine, so it's okay to take it apart. And I love the cover. I'll use the cover for a journal. And I love the pages. So that's a fun book to find. This one has a nice linen cover, and I would use this keeping that title on there, and I have lots of stamps. So I could use the pages from this book and then also make a lot of embellishments with postage stamps. So that would be fun. And just mail-themed ephemera, which I have quite a bit of. This one, Rain and Shine, is another school book. And I want to use this to make maybe a weather journal. All three of these would be for weather journals, Rain and Shine. So I didn't realize that these were the same book. They are completely different looking covers. But this one is older. They're the same book, but different covers. And I love both of the covers. And then this one I just got, Everyday Weather and How It Works. So old school books are really fun to find. Moving on to my favorite. Well, I love the children's books, but I also love these really old, beautiful covers. This is one I've had for a long time, and I haven't made it yet, and I want to keep this one because this one is just so precious to me. It's just a tiny little book with this beautiful image on the front. Housekeeping in Old Virginia. I just look for interesting old book covers. They're harder for me to find. This one is embossed. This one is also embossed. It's a German book. Oh, sorry. I had my alarm set for something and I don't need it anymore. And I forgot to turn it off. It scared me. I hope I didn't scare you. Look at the beautiful embossing. And another one. And then some old children's books with pretty pictures on the front. And then these with the pretty ladies. I love finding these. And these are hard to find. I got quite a few of them at my flea market, the Barnes flea market, but I don't see them there anymore. And then some just have a pretty design on them. The little old school music books are fun. Nice pages and then beautiful covers. And they're usually a little bit bigger, just a little bit bigger than the other books. You can get them quite a bit bigger. Now this one I didn't get for this front cover, but it had a dust jacket on it that I absolutely loved. I just love that picture for some reason. I like the, it almost looks like a comic book, doesn't it? With the black lines and the bright colors. But I would love to Mod Podge this image onto the front of that book. So that's why I got that book. This one could be a Christmas journal. And this is a little bit bigger also, but I think it'll make a beautiful journal. And I can use the pages too. I'll show you some of the books that I've made using some of the pretty covers. This one I actually got, it's not exactly an antique store, but it costs more than a flea market type of store. I guess it was for vendors, and each vendor had their own prices, so it can be kind of expensive in there. So I paid more for this. I don't remember how much. I've had it for a long time. Paid more for this than I normally do, but I made a beautiful journal out of it and kept it. And I kept the spine intact. So if I can, if the spine is big enough and it's in good shape, I keep the spine intact. Oh, this was another example of something I did to a plain book cover. This is completely covered in paper, scrapbook paper, and then Mod Podged and decorated. It's a book about Hollywood. Oh, I didn't write in this one yet. Old Time Hollywood. I wrote some. I'm not using it as a journal. I'm using it as just my favorite movies and actors and stuff like that. But I haven't done much in it. But this one had this pretty lady on it, and I just decorated around her. This is coming off here. This is an older one too, because it's covered in cardstock instead of fabric. And this one, the Victrola Book of the Opera. I liked this on the front, and so I made a journal out of it. It's a nice larger journal, and I did use this one. And this one had a design, just a pattern on the book of all these chocolate wrappers. So I made a chocolate themed journal. It did have a closure here, like a spoon handle thing to hook onto that, but it came off. I have to glue it back on. So those are some ways I've used some decorated book covers. What other kind of book covers might I look for? Let me move some of these out of my way. I'm going to have a job putting all these things away, aren't I? Recipe books are a good thing to look for. This is a small one, and it's good meals and how to prepare them. I love the checkerboard. I love the small size. I just love the look of this little vintage book. Had some stuff inside it too. And of course you can always use the recipes to make ephemera. This book is from 1929, so it's pretty old, and it's in fairly good condition. This one, I would want the spine to be bigger, but I want to keep that. Sometimes I make the spines into bookmarks, but I'm going to probably just expand this spine. And I can show how I do that in another, when I make this, whenever I get around to it. This is a good size for a cookbook. And I have I don't have a lot of cookbook journals left, or books left, because I made some and sold some. But I do have binders. I didn't bring out the binders to talk about them. This one I would use for a domestic arts journal, which is a larger size for me. It's a larger size journal, and it has a theme of anything to do with domestic arts, like cooking, needlecraft, sewing, decorating your home, things like that, even gardening. Things that you would do for your home. So I love this adventuring in home living. And this was like a home ec book for school. 1954. But I kept some of the pages, so I can make a journal out of that. This one I would also use for a domestic arts, and it would be a smaller domestic arts. I make them bigger than this. This is one of the bigger ones. So let me, yeah, I got my tape right here. Without, where I would cut the book from the spine, it measures about 8 by 10 3/4. And that would make a fun domestic arts journal. And that one is fun also. It's a little bit taller. This one would make a great cookbook. And this one, I like the Better Homes and Gardens craft books. I like the size of them. This one is 7 1/4 by just over 10. That's a really good size for a domestic arts book. Also some larger books. I love this one. It's more square, and I wanted to make a journal for myself out of it. I paid $6 for this book, which is more than I normally pay. I have paid $8 for a book cover that I really, really loved. But I wanted to keep this one for myself, just because I love this cover for some reason. I don't know why, but it just jumped right off the shelf at me. At the flea market one year, I came across a vendor that was selling a large supply of school textbooks. I'm going to move these books out of my way. And I bought the ones that I like the covers of, and I've used some. I just make kind of eclectic journals out of these. No theme, just throwing in fun stuff. And this one would also be a good domestic arts book. Well, it's actually a geography book, but I like the home folks and the people gathered around. Looks like they're playing a game at home. But it is an old geography book. And a classic children's book covers, Wizard of Oz and Alice. This one doesn't have a design on the cover, but I could take this, take the plastic off it, and Mod Podge it to the front, or any other image I wanted to put on the front to make it into an Alice in Wonderland journal. This one is so pretty, and I want to make that into a farm journal. And then this one, we make a beautiful journal about roses, featuring roses. For glue books, I like, or smash books, I like slightly larger books. I don't think I'll be making glue books anymore, or not too much anymore. These two I really want to make into glue books, but I might just keep them because I still have one in my shop. I put 4 in my shop, and I've sold 3 of them, and one's still there. And they normally sell in one day, so I think people have all the glue books they want. So I'm not keeping glue book covers too much anymore. I have some that I'm going to sell, just the covers. But I love these two covers, and I am not giving these up, at least not yet. But these are the size I like to make glue books with. And I love the interesting old covers like that for glue books, and I like fun covers like that. And I also like children's, bigger children's book covers, and this one too. So those are the three that I don't want to get rid of. I remember these books from my grandmother's house. And then here's just a plain one. I would use this for a smash book with the wire binding, but I would decorate the front. And this one I could do a circus themed smash book because it's fun. I'm looking to see if I have any books to show you. This is one that I made with a Spanish textbook, and it's a collage book for me. So it's a little bit bigger. You can make collage books any size you want, but I like them to be a little bit bigger. Then, what about the ledger books? We like the ledger papers, but I like to use the covers too. So, all I have to show you right now are these little ones. I have this cash book, and this is really beat up. I would really have to do some work on it, but I will because I think it's cool and I love the pages that came in it. So I would make journals out of those, but this is one that I made out of a tall, old ledger. So you can use books of any size to make your ledger, to make your journals. I added a spine to this, and I haven't used this one yet, but I absolutely love it. I made it for myself so that I could keep a sampling of the big variety of vintage ledger papers that I have, and also a sampling of my favorite vintage ephemera pieces that I have. So this book, whether I ever use it or not, is just a collection, really, of my vintage ephemera. And it is one of my treasures. Pieces that I kept hoarding and didn't want to use, now they're used. They're in this book. I'm taking my time flipping through this so you can see some of the ephemera that I used. I put this reel in here from, it says Home of Santa's Workshop, North Pole, New York. It's in the Adirondacks, and I went there when I was a kid. My family and I went there, so I saved that. They even put a piece of the spine right there. Just such a fun book. I've got to keep this out so I can sit and look at it for a while. And one last thing I wanted to show you. This is an old book. I made this quite a long time ago. But it was a binder, and it was a household binder. And it says important papers, a convenient binder for the safekeeping of insurance policies. So it had envelopes to keep papers in from different categories. And I covered it on the inside and the outside. It was a slightly padded cover, but I just covered it with paper, and the corners are starting to open up. I could always take that off and do it with fabric. And I used it, so I'm not going to flip through it too much, but this is one of the envelopes. So I just had fun and just used this as a binder journal, and I actually used it. So you can use all kinds of things, all kinds of books to make your journals. So I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please let me know. if you want me to do a video sometime talking about alternate kinds of materials to make book covers with, I can try to do that. But like I said, this is my norm, using an old book cover. Usually old, sometimes new, but usually old. And it is so much fun to give them a new life. Thank you. Thank you for your question. I hope I answered what you wanted to know. And thank you all for watching. And please leave a comment and give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel and ask any questions you might want to ask, and I will try to answer. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.